This tale has long been hailed as one of the most authentically supernatural incidents ever circulated. In 2019, within a modest hotel in Wuxi County, Jiaozuo City, Hunan Province, a young woman on a business trip was found lifeless in her room. In the days before her death, she had been feverish, delirious, and strangely disturbed, and after her passing, she allegedly appeared in her colleague's dream, guiding him on a harrowing journey into the realm beyond death. The story first surfaced on Weibo that same year, and soon afterward, netizens unearthed a judicial document whose details mirrored the account almost perfectly, further deepening the public's belief in its authenticity. At the request of countless curious readers, today we revisit this chilling narrative known as the Yomi Incident, a story proclaimed to be the most terrifying real supernatural case in recent memory. The protagonist, Afeng, hailed from Hefei, Anhui, though he worked in Changzhou, Jiangsu. The victim, Yumi, was also from Hefei. On March 17, 2019, Afeng's company dispatched a team of 4 men and 1 woman to Wuxi County for a business trip. Among them were Afeng and Yumi. Because the other 3 colleagues had additional tasks to complete elsewhere, the 2 of them arrived ahead of the group. Upon landing, the local partner arranged their accommodation. The hotel stood at a T-shaped intersection, where road construction had left the surroundings deserted, shops shuttered, streets empty, and an eerie stillness hanging in the air. The bleakness unsettled them. Trying to lighten the mood, Afeng reassured Yumi that at least the nights would be quiet enough for sound sleep. Yet Yumi insisted that she absolutely would not stay in any room located at the end of a corridor. Fate, it seemed, had other plans. Afeng's assigned room was at the very end of the 3rd-floor corridor, and Yumi's at the end of the 4th. That evening, she argued with the front desk and managed to switch to a different room, then asked Afeng to go retrieve her luggage from the original one. When he opened the door, a gust of icy dread surged toward him, an inexplicable chill that made his skin crawl. The room was pitch dark except for the reflection of deep blue LED light glimmering off the window pane. Steeling himself, he hurried in, snatched up the suitcase, and all but fled back downstairs, helping Yumi move into her new room midway along the 3rd floor. Afterward, Afeng considered changing his own room as well, but dismissed the idea. He would endure one night and decide later. But in the dead of night, at around 3 in the morning, he was jolted awake by an odd sound, like someone tapping a bowl just outside his door. Sometimes 3 slow knocks followed by 3 rapid ones, sometimes an abrupt, frantic rhythm. Irritated and half asleep, he cursed toward the window, turned on the light, and stumbled to the bathroom. The moment he stood up, the mysterious knocking vanished. On Monday, March 18th, daylight dispelled the tension. Their work progressed smoothly, and the remaining 3 colleagues finally arrived. That night, they stayed together in a triple room on the 5th floor. Their supervisor, Lao Kai, called everyone together for a brief meeting. Yumi was the last to arrive. He appeared uneasy and said the place felt unnervingly strange. Moments earlier, while returning from buying cigarettes, he had noticed that in the entire hotel, the only lit window belonged to Afeng's room. Upon hearing this, Lao Kai admitted that he too had felt a prickling unease when he first checked in. However, since this was a business trip and switching hotels would require them to pay out of pocket, and considering the local partners had graciously arranged everything, it would seem disrespectful to leave immediately. After weighing the matter, they agreed to endure one more night and move the next day. Yet midway through the meeting, the corridor outside erupted with the fleeting sounds of children giggling and chasing each other, only 2 or 3 seconds before fading into silence. Already on edge, Afeng nearly lost his composure. As soon as the meeting ended, he grabbed Lao Kai and rushed downstairs, determined to pack up his belongings. He planned to sleep in the upstairs room with the others. While he headed to the bathroom, Lao Kai sat on the sofa. Halfway through, Lao Kai suddenly called out in a panicked tone, "Afeng, are you done? Hurry up, we're changing hotels." Without thinking, Afeng grabbed his packed bag, informed the others, and together they moved to a new hotel in Wuxi's bustling town center. Streetlights, traffic, and human voices seemed to pull them abruptly back into the living world. They booked 3 adjacent rooms, Afeng and Lao Kai in the middle, 2 male colleagues on the left, and Yumi alone on the right. Thus ended a long and unsettling day. On Tuesday, March 19th, Yumi suddenly developed a fever. Because most of his assigned tasks had already been completed earlier, the remaining work primarily fell on the other 4 men, who were responsible for executing a major event. They urged him to stay in his room, rest well, and take some medicine. On Wednesday, March 20th, his fever persisted. Afeng reported the situation to their boss, put aside his duties, and accompanied Yumi to the hospital. A single injection brought his temperature down, and by afternoon, he claimed to feel much better. The others suggested he return to Changzhou to recuperate. They could manage the remaining work without him. But to their surprise, Yumi adamantly refused, so stubbornly, it felt as though some unseen force was compelling him to remain. Though puzzled, they didn't push him further and allowed him to stay at the hotel. By Thursday, March 21st, Yumi's behavior had grown even stranger. In the morning, he told everyone his fever was gone, yet he still didn't want to go out, preferring instead to sit alone in his room. When they invited him to the event venue to lighten the atmosphere, he refused, saying he didn't have time. Lao Kai, bewildered, asked what he was busy with. "I'm chatting with someone," Yumi replied. Absorbed in their own tasks, the others let him be. That evening, his fever spiked again. This time, both Lao Kai and Afeng brought him to Wuxi County Central Hospital. After running tests, the doctor insisted it was merely acclimatory discomfort, nothing serious, telling him simply to rest. While listening, Afeng kept studying Yumi's face. His eyes were hollow, his gaze vacant, his expression disturbingly lifeless. On Friday, March 22nd, Yumi stayed in his room the entire day, refusing to eat. By Saturday, March 23rd, the group was overwhelmed with work. Only when they returned late at night did they have time to check on him. His fever had returned again. 2 colleagues took him to the hospital once more, yet the doctor repeated the same diagnosis: mild water and soil intolerance, rest advised. But everyone felt something was deeply wrong. The colleagues who escorted him back reported that on the ride home, Yumi had begun talking to himself, breaking into sudden bursts of laughter, sharp, abrupt, and chilling enough to raise the hairs on their arms. On Sunday, March 24th, their event finally concluded. The team felt the entire place reeked of misfortune. Not only had the work gone disastrously, but their car had even been struck on the way back to the hotel. No one wanted to spend another night in Wuxi. Lao Kai decided to hire a car and leave immediately for Zhengzhou, where they would fly home the next day. They knocked on Yumi's door to tell him to pack. He agreed. But when the car arrived and everyone waited downstairs, he refused to come down. Afeng and Lao Kai went up to knock again. From behind the door, Yumi replied, "I'm not going. I'll go to the airport by myself tomorrow." Unable to persuade him, and reluctant to keep the car waiting, the 4 of them left first. On the road, they bought a high-speed rail ticket for Yumi for the next morning. On Monday, March 25th, before boarding their flight, they tried contacting Yumi, but his phone went unanswered. Lao Kai called the hotel front desk for help. After a while, the staff replied. The cleaning lady had knocked, and a woman's voice inside answered loudly, sounding perfectly fine, just unwilling to open the door. Hearing this, Afeng recalled how Yumi had refused to leave Wuxi for days, unwilling even to step outside, as though hiding from something. He didn't think too deeply and simply sent Yumi a voice message before boarding the plane. After landing in Nanjing, then transferring to a high-speed train, he returned home exhausted and collapsed into sleep. On Tuesday, March 26th, Afeng slept poorly, waking inexplicably at 6 in the morning before drifting back to sleep. At 9, his boss's call jerked him awake. "Where are you?" the boss demanded, voice cracking. "Home," Afeng replied groggily. "I'm in Changzhou." His boss suddenly broke into tears. "Yumi is dead. He died in the hotel." A shiver shot through Afeng. He began to cry as well and immediately contacted Lao Kai. Together with his boss and her husband, the 4 of them rushed to Wuxi County to answer police questions. The cause of death was unclear. Yumi's final message had been a voice note sent to their boss at midnight. She hadn't listened at the time, worried the sound might wake her 3-year-old child, so she tried converting it to text, but the transcription failed. She decided to check it the next morning. Now, at the police station, they asked her to play it. She lifted the phone to her ear, listened halfway, and screamed, flinging the device across the room. The recording contained the agonized wailing and tortured moans of someone on the brink of death. On Monday, April 1st, the eve of Yumi's first 7-day memorial, Afeng was overwhelmed with grief. At the company, he and Yumi had been closest, sharing a hometown bond that fostered familiarity and warmth. Now, Yumi was gone. Exhausted, Afeng fell into a deep sleep. In his dream, a dense, rolling fog enveloped the landscape. He and Yumi were seated on a human-powered tricycle, racing toward an unknown destination. Soon, they arrived. Stepping down, the fog dissipated, revealing a gray, desolate village. The sky loomed like a smoldering forest. The yellow glow of distant fires suggested a sun that might never rise. Roofs stretched endlessly, obscuring any sense of day or night. Light sources were unclear, yet every detail stood visible with unnerving clarity. They entered a room resembling an old-fashioned train station, its white walls painted green up to a meter high, reminiscent of a hospital corridor. Yumi asked Afeng to wait for a moment before disappearing into a smaller chamber. After a long while, he re-emerged, smiling, his gaze fixed on Afeng. "Ah, Afeng," he said. "I cannot leave. Let me escort you back. You must return." Bewildered, Afeng realized he was seated once more on a red tricycle. As it sped forward, they plunged back into thick fog. Startled awake, Afeng found himself drenched in sweat. Checking his phone, he realized only 10 minutes had passed in the real world. Even with the lights on, he could not shake the memory of Yumi's rigid, unnatural face and unblinking eyes. He could not sleep that night. Early the next morning, he called his mother, who immediately rushed to Changzhou and stayed with him for several days. Later, A Feng sought out a local shamaness. She told him his life force was strong and not yet destined to end. Yumi had led him to Fengdu City, but had failed to bring him along. Fengdu, also known as the City of Ghosts, is, according to legend, where souls go after death. From that day forward, A Feng never dreamed the same dream again. Yet the gray, dim village and Yumi's final, corpse-like expression remained etched in his memory forever. More than 2 years passed. On Thursday, October 17, 2021, A Feng met Lao Kai for a drink. After 2 glasses, he suddenly remembered something. Back at the hotel, you went with me to collect my luggage. We were planning to sleep together. Why did you suddenly decide to switch hotels? He asked. Lao Kai hesitated, his expression evasive. Do you really want to know? He finally said. A Feng nodded. I was sitting on your sofa, Lao Kai confessed, when I saw a face reflected in the television screen on the left. Whose face? It was Yumi's. The story, recounted by the blogger A Feng, garnered immense attention. Attentive readers, piecing together the details, even located a judicial record online. The document confirmed. On March 17, 2019, a woman from a Changzhou-based company was sent on a business trip to Wuxi County. She fell ill and was escorted to medical care on March 20th, 21st, and 23rd. Yet on March 26th, she was discovered deceased in her hotel room. The record's specifics aligned almost perfectly with A Feng's account, lending the tale an air of undeniable reality. Yet the story also sparked harsh criticism. Many argued that the colleagues, noticing Yumi's increasingly erratic behavior, should never have left him alone, some even suggesting they bore responsibility for her death. Soon after, A Feng deleted his blog post. What remains are secondary copies and retellings on other platforms. But does the Yomi incident truly qualify as a supernatural event? The judicial document reveals the medical reality. Within a month of her death, authorities found that the young woman suffered from multiple cardiac and pulmonary diseases, mild cerebral edema, moderate fatty liver, and various ailments affecting her gallbladder, spleen, and kidneys. The likely cause of death was sudden cardiac arrest due to chronic physical illness, not paranormal forces. In essence, there are 2 possibilities. Either the events occurred, but narrative embellishments exaggerated the eerie phenomena, fueled by the psychological shock of losing a colleague, or the story was wholly fictional, inspired by the publicly accessible judicial document. Local netizens and residents near the Kunlun Liju Hotel have even claimed they never heard of the incident, raising further doubts. A Feng's later interrogation of Lao Kai regarding the sudden hotel change occurred years after the fact, which seems more a literary device than a reflection of real behavior. While interpretations of the tale vary, if Yumi was indeed the woman described in the document, one can only hope that, 5 years on, she rests in eternal peace.